The Beast in the Jungle. The jungle was silent, and that was never a good sign. On the alien planet Yalvora, silence in the red jungle meant something dangerous was nearby. Every creature, big or small, hid in fear when the beast was hunting. The locals called it Karzal, a name spoken only in whispers. It was the apex predator of the jungle, taller than 3 men with black fur like shadow and eyes like burning coals. No alien had ever tamed it. No one who tried had ever returned. But today, a human had come. His name was Mason Carter, a crash-landed pilot from Earth. His ship had fallen from the sky in flames just outside the jungle. The alien villagers had rescued him, fed him, and warned him, "Never go into the jungle. You won't come back." But Mason was not like the others. He smiled when he heard stories of the beast. He asked questions. And 3 days after his crash, he stood at the jungle's edge with a bag of food and calm eyes. "You will die in there," said Varel, an alien girl assigned to watch over the human. She had light blue skin, bright silver eyes, and a warrior's voice. Mason chuckled. "Maybe, but I want to see it with my own eyes." Varel's long fingers curled into fists. "That thing doesn't just kill. It plays with its food." Still, Mason stepped into the jungle. The trees swallowed him whole. Thick vines hung from giant branches. The air smelled of wet soil and danger. Every step Mason took made no sound. Birds did not sing. Insects did not move. He felt eyes watching him. He knelt by a fallen log and pulled meat from his bag. Cooked meat, not raw. He placed it on a flat rock, then sat down near it and waited. For an hour, nothing happened. But Mason didn't move. Behind him, something huge moved in the shadows. A soft growl touched the air like thunder hiding behind a whisper. He turned his head slowly. There it was. Karzal. It was even bigger than the stories. Its thick muscles moved like rolling waves beneath its fur. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth, each one longer than a finger. Red drool dripped from its jaw as it stared at the human. Mason didn't run. He didn't scream. He just stayed still and nodded once. "I brought food," he said softly. The beast blinked. It stepped closer, its heavy paws silent. Mason felt the ground shake with each step. The predator sniffed the air and then the meat. Then, it did something no one believed possible. It took the food. It didn't kill. Back at the village, Varel waited near the jungle's edge. Hours passed. She expected to hear screams or see blood, but instead she saw something else. Mason walked out. He was alone, but his clothes were torn, his hands scratched, and his face carried a strange smile. He didn't speak as he passed Varel. "What did you see?" she asked, shocked he was still breathing. Mason didn't answer. "I need more meat," he whispered, heading straight to the food stores. That night, Varel couldn't sleep. Her people had lost many warriors to Karzal. Even their bravest fighters fell in that jungle. But this human? He walked in and came out like it was a picnic. She had to know more. The next morning, she followed him. She moved silently behind the trees, using the skills of her people. Mason didn't notice her. Or maybe he did, but didn't care. He placed more food, sat down again, waited, and then the impossible happened again. The beast returned. This time it didn't just eat and leave. It sat down near the human, only a few meters away, close enough to kill him in one swipe. But it didn't. It watched him, listened to him. Mason spoke softly to it like he was talking to an old friend. Varel's heart pounded. She knew this was not natural, not normal. Something strange was happening between this human and the jungle's deadliest creature. She ran back to the village to tell the elders. "They won't believe me," she whispered. "But they need to know. This human, he's doing the impossible." They said he'd be eaten alive. The alien council had only one answer when Varel told them what she saw. Lies. The elder warriors laughed. "No human can survive near the Karzal, let alone feed it. He's tricking you." But Varel's voice was steady. "I saw it with my own eyes. The beast sat near him, like a pet. The head elder slammed his staff against the stone floor. Enough. If the human wants to die, let him. We will not risk more lives for foolish stories. But not everyone laughed. Commander Grelth, a scarred veteran, looked thoughtful. If this is true, he said, then the human is more dangerous than the beast. Far from the village, the red jungle was alive with tension. Mason was back, knelt again by the same rock, his hands calm, movements slow. The sun leaked through the thick canopy, casting golden light on the damp ground. Scarback appeared, just like the day before. This time, he didn't just eat. He lay down beside the human. His breathing was heavy but relaxed. Mason didn't speak this time. He just pulled out a small brush and began cleaning the beast's fur. The mighty Karzal, feared by generations, let him. It even closed its eyes. Varel watched from a higher ledge, her mouth slightly open. She had followed again, this time hiding better, not wanting to scare the uppy creature. Her heartbeat raced. How is this possible, she thought. Her people had sent warriors with nets, traps, tranquilizers. None of them had worked. The jungle always gave back blood and bones. But Mason had given the beast trust, and somehow it had returned that trust. Back at the village, the rumor started to spread. Did you hear? They say the human pets the Karzal. No, he must be controlling it with tech. Maybe he's not human at all. Varel stayed silent. She knew what she saw, and it wasn't tech. It was something older, something more powerful. Kindness, patience, respect. Things her people had forgotten when it came to wild creatures. That night, Mason returned to the village. A small crowd formed, whispering. Some pointed, others backed away. No one said it out loud, but they all knew. He had returned again. No wounds, no fear, just silence and a tired smile. Varel stepped forward. You groomed it? Mason nodded. Scarback had thorns stuck in his fur. I helped. Scarback? I gave him a name, Mason said simply. She blinked. You named the thing that kills our people? I don't think he wants to kill, Mason replied. He's just been hurt so many times, he forgot what peace feels like. Varel looked at him carefully. You're strange. I've been called worse. Later that evening, as Mason sat near the fire, sharpening a blade he didn't need, the village leader approached. You must stop. Mason didn't look up. Stop what? Going into the jungle, feeding the beast, calling it your friend. Why? Because beasts stay beasts. They turn one day. They always do. Mason finally raised his eyes. And what if you're wrong? What if all it needed was a little understanding? The leader said nothing. But when he left, he ordered 2 warriors to follow Mason next time. If he dies, we watch. But if he lives, we end this nonsense. The next morning, Mason walked back into the jungle. Varel was already watching from the trees. But this time, she wasn't alone. The 2 warriors were nearby, hiding behind thick branches, crossbows ready. Scarback came. But today, something was different. He was limping. Mason noticed it immediately. What happened to you, big guy? He whispered. He gently touched the beast's leg. A deep cut, likely from stepping on one of the villagers' old traps. Mason began cleaning the wound with herbs and water he had brought. Scarback growled in pain, but didn't attack. The warriors behind the trees were frozen. One of them whispered, He's healing it like a doctor. The other narrowed his eyes. Or like a madman. Suddenly, Scarback stood up. His red eyes turned toward the hidden warriors. He growled, not loud but deep. Mason turned too. He didn't panic. Easy, he said. They're not here to hurt. But the beast was still angry. The air grew heavy. Varel jumped down from the trees. Stop! Don't shoot! The warriors looked at her in shock. Let him finish, she said. Just look at them. And for the first time, all 3 aliens stood still and watched a human tend to a monster as if it were a friend. The day the beast sat beside him, no one dared breathe. The jungle stood still, like even the trees were watching. Scarback, the Karzal, stood face to face with the alien warriors hiding in the trees. His massive claws dug into the ground, his tail twitching slowly behind him. A low rumble echoed from his chest. Varel stepped in front of her people, arms wide. "He won't hurt you," she shouted. "Back away slowly. He's protecting his friend." The warriors looked uncertain, their fingers tightened on their crossbows. But one glance at the beast's glowing red eyes, and they dropped their weapons to the ground. Scarback growled once more, then lowered his head. He limped toward Mason, bleeding, breathing heavily. Mason didn't flinch. Instead, he reached up and gently pressed his hand against Scarback's muzzle. "Good boy," he whispered. "It's okay now." And the monster sat right beside him. For a few long minutes, no one moved. Varel's heart was beating like a war drum. She had seen many things as a scout: sky battles, warships, alien raids, but nothing like this. The apex predator of her world, sitting beside a human like a loyal companion. Scarback's breathing slowed, his eyes half closed. The jungle returned to silence. But now, it felt peaceful. Mason leaned against the beast's thick fur and smiled. "I think he trusts me now." The warriors returned to the village in a state of shock. Others came running to hear what happened. The story spread like wildfire. The beast didn't attack. It sat beside him like a tamed animal. They're calling it Scarback. Now, some were amazed, others were terrified. Many believed Mason was using secret Earth technology. Maybe he has a mind control device, or drugs in the meat, or maybe he's not human at all. But Varel had seen his hands. She had watched him speak gently, wait patiently, and offer help without fear. It wasn't tech. It was something deeper. Later that evening, the village square was crowded. Elder Yagrin, the oldest of the council, stood before the tribe. She spoke, with a shaking voice, but her words hit like stone. "No one has ever tamed the Karzal. What the human has done breaks our laws of nature." One warrior stood up. "He is dangerous. If he can tame a monster, he can control us too." Another yelled, "He should be exiled before it's too late." The crowd grew louder. Then, Varel stepped forward. "Scarback didn't attack us," she said. "He could have, but he didn't. Mason protected us by calming him." Elder Ygrin's eyes narrowed. "And what happens when the beast turns? What will your human do then?" Varel answered firmly, "He will stand beside it." That night, Mason sat by the fire outside his small hut, feeding scraps to a jungle bird that had grown used to his presence. Varel approached quietly. "You're becoming a legend," she said with a small smile. "I'd prefer a nap," Mason replied, tossing the last scrap to the bird. She sat beside him. "Why do you do it? Why risk your life for that beast?" Mason looked up at the stars. "On Earth, I trained rescue dogs," he said. "Many were abused, angry, violent. People said they couldn't be helped, but every time, they just needed someone to believe in them." Varel's eyes softened. "So you believe in Scarback?" "I believe no one is born a monster, not even him." At sunrise, something unexpected happened. Scarback came to the village. He didn't roar. He didn't attack. He walked slowly, still limping slightly, until he found Mason's hut and lay down outside like a guardian. Villagers screamed and scattered. Children hid. Warriors grabbed weapons. But Mason came out, calm as ever, and placed his hand on the beast's thick fur. "It's okay," he said. "He won't harm anyone." Scarback growled once, then laid his head down. The entire village watched. The predator had chosen its side. "You tamed our apex predator?" The morning sky turned gold as the village of Varntel stood frozen in fear. Outside Mason's hut, the beast slept. The Karzal, the nightmare of their jungle, the slayer of warriors, the untamable monster, was lying calmly with its giant head resting near the human's boots. And the human? He was sipping hot leaf water, like this was completely normal. From the rooftops, villagers peeked. From doorways, children whispered. And from the central hall, Commander Grelth stormed out in a rage. "Enough," he barked. "This is madness." His boot slammed the dirt as he marched toward Mason, who didn't even stand up. "You bring death to our door and act like it's a pet," Grelth growled. Mason looked at him calmly. "Scarback came here on his own. He hasn't hurt anyone." "Yet," the commander snapped. "It's a predator. You may have fooled it, but when it gets hungry—" "He's not fooled," Mason interrupted. "He's understood." The crowd had grown now. Half the village had gathered, keeping their distance. Crossbows were ready, shields raised. Even Elder Wygren arrived, leaning on her staff. "You tamed our apex predator?" she said in disbelief. Mason stood slowly. "I didn't tame him. I respected him." "That's different," the elder scoffed. "It's an animal, a killer." Mason looked at Scarback. "He's a survivor, like me." At that moment, Scarback stirred. He stood up slowly, towering over everyone. A low rumble rolled from his throat. Weapons were raised. But then, he walked over to a frightened child clinging to her mother's legs. Everyone gasped. The child cried out. The mother screamed. Scarback stopped just one step away, then he sat. Slowly, carefully, he bent down and pushed a fallen fruit toward the little girl. The child stopped crying. She picked up the fruit and smiled. Silence fell. Even Commander Grelth didn't know what to say. Mason turned to the elders. "He's not just a beast. He's a living creature capable of trust, of peace. You treat him like a monster, and that's all he'll ever be. But I gave him a choice, and he made it." That evening, the council met in secret. "He must leave," said one elder. "It's too dangerous. If we attack the beast, it will destroy us," another warned. Elder Ygritte stared into the fire. "The human changed the Karzal," she said slowly. "But what if the Karzal changes the human?" Meanwhile, Mason sat outside, sharpening a small blade. Varel joined him, her eyes focused on Scarback resting nearby. "You know they're afraid of you," she said softly. "I know," Mason replied. "They think you'll lose control." He looked up. "So do I sometimes." Varel blinked. "You fear the beast?" "No," Mason answered. "I fear what others might do to him. Fear makes people act without thinking." The next day, Mason was summoned. Inside the council chamber, the mood was tense. Elder Ygritte spoke. "You may remain in the village, but the beast must be kept outside the gates. If it enters again, it will be killed." Mason's jaw tightened. "You want me to chain him like a weapon?" "We want to live," Grelth replied coldly. Mason nodded once. "Then don't provoke him." He returned to Scarback, who waited at the jungle's edge. Mason placed a hand on the beast's head. "We're not welcome inside anymore, buddy." Scarback huffed softly like he understood. Varel appeared behind them. "If you're leaving, I'm coming too." Mason turned. "Why?" She shrugged. "Because this world needs new stories, and I want to be part of one." Betrayal in the night. The moonlight poured through the trees like cold silver blood. Somewhere deep in the red jungle, Scarback slept beneath the stars, his huge chest rising and falling slowly, like a mountain breathing. Beside him, Mason rested, with one hand on the beast's fur and the other near his knife just in case. But that night, danger didn't come from the jungle. It came from behind, from the village, from betrayal. 3 figures moved through the trees, faces covered, weapons sharp. They wore the symbols of the Varntel warriors, but not their honor. Their leader, Zarv, was the one who'd lost a brother to the Karzal many seasons ago. "No beast deserves trust," he whispered. and no human should be allowed to control one. They crept forward. Their target wasn't Mason, it was the sleeping predator. Scarback stirred, sensing something wrong. His eyes opened halfway. He didn't rise. Not yet. Mason's breath slowed. He was half asleep, but something felt cold in the air. Then it happened. A sharp metal spear struck Scarback in the leg. The beast roared in pain, jerking up to its full height. Blood poured from the wound. Mason jumped to his feet. "No, stop." But the attackers didn't stop. They threw two more blades, one grazed Scarback's shoulder, the other struck a tree. And then the predator snapped. Scarback charged with blinding speed. One attacker screamed and vanished into the trees, crashing into the brush. The second tried to run, but Scarback's tail struck him like a hammer, sending him flying into a rock. Only Zarv remained. He raised his spear for one final blow, but Mason stepped in front of him. "Don't," Mason warned. Zarv growled. "You've bewitched that thing." Mason didn't move. "Go back, before I let him finish what you started." Scarback growled behind him, fangs bared, red eyes glowing with fury. Zarv fled into the dark. Varel arrived moments later, out of breath, bow in hand. I heard shouting. "What happened?" Mason was on one knee pressing a cloth against Scarback's bleeding leg. "They tried to kill him," he said, voice cold. "From your village." Varel's heart sank. No, they couldn't. They did. At sunrise, Mason didn't return to the village. He sat beside Scarback, cleaning the wound with shaking hands. Varel stayed with him, silent. She knew what this meant. "They won't stop," Mason finally said. "Next time, they won't miss." "Then what will you do?" He looked at her. "I'll protect him, no matter what." In the village, chaos erupted. Zarv lied to the council. He attacked first. "The beast tried to enter the village. I barely escaped alive." Many believed him. Commander Grelth called for action. "If the human won't put the beast down, we must do it ourselves." Elder Ygrin was silent, but the drums of fear had started, beating. That night, Mason stood at the jungle's edge with Scarback at his side. "I should leave," he said quietly, "but I won't run." Varel nodded. "Good, because neither will I." She placed a small symbol in his hand, a sun carved from bone. "My clan only gives this to those we trust with our lives." Mason looked at it for a long time, then tucked it into his pocket. Deep in the trees, Scarback suddenly growled. Mason stood. Something else was coming, but it wasn't from the village. It was far, bigger. A distant rumble echoed through the jungle floor. Trees shook. Scarback growled again, but this time, not in pain. In warning, Mason narrowed his eyes. Something's coming. When the real enemy came, the ground was breathing. That's what it felt like. Slow, heavy pulses shaking the soil beneath Mason's boots. Even Scarback, the mighty jungle beast, stepped back and growled low, ears twitching. In all the time, Mason had known the creature. He had never seen it afraid. That's when he knew. This was no ordinary threat. Something massive was moving through the jungle, and it was coming straight for them. The birds vanished first. Then the trees fell silent. Varel stood beside Mason, bow ready, heart racing. "Do you feel that?" "Yes," Mason said. "Every bone in my body feels it." Scarback stared into the trees, muscles tense. His wounds still hurt, but the fear in his eyes was stronger than the pain. Then the jungle split apart. With a crashing roar, an enormous beast pushed through the trees. It was like nothing they had seen before, twice the size of Scarback, covered in spiked armor plates and thick gray scales. It had 6 legs, 3 eyes glowing yellow, and tusks as long as Mason's arm. It was a mountain beast, a creature believed to live in the cold peaks far from any village. One that no tribe had seen for generations, and now it was here. Mason grabbed Varel's arm. "Run, get back to the village, warn them." "I'm not leaving you," she shouted. He looked at her hard. "Go, that's an order." She hesitated. then turned and ran. Scarback stepped forward. The two apex predators faced each other, jungle kings from different worlds. The mountain beast bellowed a challenge. Scarback answered with a roar of his own. And then, they charged. Daitiu. Ground exploded beneath their weight. Mason dived out of the way as Scarback leapt high, slamming into the beast's side. Claws tore at armor. Tusks slashed air. Scarback moved faster, but the mountain beast was stronger. It tossed Scarback aside like a toy. Mason picked up a spear left by the fallen warriors. He charged, stabbing the beast's hind leg. It barely noticed, but it was enough. Scarback, recovered, lunged in and bit deep into the beast's throat. The monster howled and backed away, injured but not defeated. In the distance, war horns sounded. Varel had reached the village. Warriors came running, bows ready, spears raised, but when they saw what waited beyond the jungle line, they stopped in terror. Commander Grelth froze. "What is that?" Elder Igrin whispered. "Death." Mason stood with blood running down his arm. Scarback limped beside, him wounded but ready. "They won't survive without help," Mason said, voice tight. "And Scarback can't fight alone." He turned to the beast. "Do you still trust me?" Scarback growled and lowered his head. Mason climbed onto the predator's back, a human riding the nightmare of the jungle. The warriors gasped. Some dropped their weapons. Then Mason raised his spear. "Follow us, or die alone." And they charged. The final battle was chaos. Scarback struck first, leaping onto the mountain beast's back. Mason stabbed again and again, using speed where strength failed. The village warriors followed, arrows flying, spears flashing. Varel led a flank from the trees, landing arrows into the beast's eye. The mountain beast screamed in rage, thrashing, stomping, throwing warriors left and right, but it was slowing. Scarback had locked onto its throat again, refusing to let go. Mason climbed forward and drove his last spear into the beast's skull. It stumbled, roared, and fell. Silence. Everyone stood frozen, panting, bleeding. The mountain beast was dead, and standing atop it was a human and his monster, or maybe not a monster at all. Commander Grelth dropped to one knee. "So, this is what trust looks like," he muttered. Elder Ygrin stepped forward. "He tamed a terror, then used it to save us all." Varel smiled through tears. "No, he didn't tame it. He became its equal." Scarback, breathing hard, collapsed beside Mason. The human knelt and placed his hand on the beast's snout. "Rest now, friend. One human, one beast. The battle of legends." Smoke still floated above the broken trees. Blood stained the soil, and silence spread across the battlefield, heavy, thick, and sacred. No one moved. The mountain beast lay dead, its massive body half buried in the dirt. Its tusks were shattered. Its armor was cracked open. It had fallen, but not easily. And standing above it, a human and a predator. Both bleeding, both alive, both victorious. Mason slid off Scarback's back slowly, wincing from his wounds. His arms were cut, his clothes torn, but his spirit stood tall. Beside him, Scarback panted heavily, dark blood dripping from his jaw, chest rising and falling like thunder. From the trees, the villagers emerged, quietly, almost in reverence. Varel was the first to step forward. She didn't say a word. She simply knelt, and one by one, the others followed. Commander Grelth threw his weapon to the ground. "I was wrong," he said loudly. "The beast is not our enemy, and the human is not a threat." Elder Ygrin, eyes full of emotion, took a deep breath. "You didn't tame the jungle, Mason. You became part of it." Varel looked at Mason, her voice soft. "Why didn't you kill it when you had the chance?" Mason looked at Scarback. "Because he never tried to kill me. He gave me trust. I gave it back." Scarback grunted in response, nudging Mason's side with his head. That night, the village lit fires, Not for fear, but for celebration. The drums that once called for war now played for peace. Scarback lay just outside the village gates, calm and relaxed. Children left fruits near him, and some even sat nearby, wide-eyed, watching the mighty beast sleep like a giant cat. Varel sat beside Mason, who had his arm wrapped in fresh bandages. "I've seen war, Mason," she said. "I've seen monsters, but what I saw today was something else." Mason chuckled lightly. "You saw a rescue dog." She laughed. "That thing is no dog." "No," Mason nodded. "But he was lost, angry, hurt. Just like those dogs. He just needed someone to believe in him." The next day, a statue was raised at the edge of the jungle. Carved from stone, it showed a man standing beside a giant beast, not holding a leash, not holding a weapon, just standing, side by side, an equal. Stories spread beyond the village. Other tribes came to see the human and his beast. Some came with fear, some came with wonder. All left with respect. Mason never claimed to be a hero. He didn't ask for titles, rewards, or gold. He only asked for one thing: let Scarback live in peace. And they agreed. Weeks passed. Varel trained with Mason, learning Earth's way of gentle strength. She became his closest friend, always by his side. And Scarback? He became a protector of the village. No longer a ghost in the jungle. No longer a story whispered to children. But a living legend. One day, a young alien child looked up at Mason and asked, "Did you really fight a mountain beast with just a spear?" Mason smiled and shook his head. "No," he said. "I didn't fight alone." And that's how a human and a monster rewrote the law of nature. Not by power, not by fear, but by trust. Together, they changed everything. Forever. The end.